KSPR's Joanna ran in today's Boston Marathon. She joins us live on the phone from Boston. First, Joanna, are you okay?
Yeah, so fortunately, my husband Mark and I are doing okay. We were not in the area when it happened. We were about a block and a half away. He was bandaging up my feet, and we were getting ready to turn the corner when all of a sudden we heard the explosion, one pretty close to right after the other. And it was really surreal because there's, about 1 million extra people who attend this marathon. It's a huge event. And literally everybody just froze. You could tell right away it wasn't a normal sound. And they looked up into the skyline. I don't know if that was because it's September 11th. People have an instinct to look up when you hear an explosion, like look at the tall buildings. We didn't see anything, but it just immediately became very chaotic after that. My husband just commented a minute ago, more police and firefighters than he's ever seen in his entire life. Our first instinct was to get off the street. We didn't know what had happened yet, so we went into kind of a huge convention center, a shopping mall, hotel area, and there were just people piled in there because you cannot be on the street in any kind of a vehicle right now. So we went in there. We were in there for a couple of hours, and then they just evacuated it a few minutes ago. We were told to go home, but that's difficult to do when you don't live in Boston, and we're staying in the suburb. The T-line, like the subway system, is shut down for the most part. And so we're not able to go anywhere. We're not quite sure what we're going to do right now. We're just on the sidewalk. It's very loud. There's sirens everywhere, so I'm having a little bit of a difficulty hearing you. But fortunately, we're okay. It's just really tragic what happened to many other people today.
Let me ask you a quick question, Joanna. What's the feeling on the street there? Are the police moving everybody from place to place? Are you being locked out of buildings?
Yeah, a lot of fear. There are some businesses that are still open, but for the most part, anybody anywhere near the area, that area is called Copley Square, is shutting down, and we're just being told to leave. But I've seen a lot of people crying. It's been really emotional. A lot of people are very confused. I think it just brings back a lot of really horrible memories. Obviously I wasn't in New York when 9/11 happened, but I remember watching that coverage on television, and watching the video over and over again of what happened at the finish line reminds me so much of that. It's just, I think it's changed the mood of the city. People are just very quiet.
Okay, well, we'll let you get to safety, Joanna. Thanks for talking to us, and if anything changes, feel free to call us back and give us the updates.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
I'm glad you're safe, and congratulations today. More on this hour's breaking news, the deadly explosions in Boston. Police say there's been a third explosion in the city following 2 blasts. You just saw the one on the right side of your screen there near the finish line of the Boston Marathon. 2 people have been confirmed killed, many others, at least 24 injured. The police commissioner says authorities are not yet certain that the explosion at the JFK library was related to the other blast, but they are treating them as if they are related. The police commissioner says there are no injuries stemming from this third explosion. He's urging people to stay indoors and not congregate in large groups. KSPR's Joanna ran in today's Boston Marathon. She joins us live from the phone from Boston. Now, Joanna, we talked to you a little bit earlier. You had finished this race before this explosion went off, correct?
That's right, about 30 minutes before. And it's kind of hard to visualize, Joe, if you haven't been here and haven't seen it. But after you cross that finish line, you walk for like another mile, and you round a corner, and there's a family reunification area where you can meet up with your friends and your family. And that's kind of the general area I was in when these explosions happened.
Okay, we're looking at the explosion right now, which is near the finish line. Tell me about that area. Were there just all kinds of people in the area? Because all we can see is the street.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look like it now, but it was amazing, and that's really something that I want people to understand. There's people that work their entire lives to come to this race. They bring their friends and their family and their children and their parents, and it's a really exciting moment. I mean, there's people along the entire course, but as you get to that finish line, there's signs and cheering and screaming and so much love and support, and then they have bleachers and stands, and you saw the stanchions, but they're just packed full of people, and there's just so much positivity. And so for this to happen in the midst of all that, I mean, it just destroys what's been happening in the city for 117 years. The Boston Marathon is the longest running marathon in the world, and it's so tragic that something like this had to happen. It's such a really special, amazing thing for the city and for so many people.
Now, your husband's in law enforcement, and you mentioned a little earlier today that we saw more officers and law enforcement than he's ever seen in his life at one time. Is there still a presence on the street? When you walk outside, do you still feel it? Do you still see it? Are they talking to people?
Yeah, it's everywhere. There's hardly any cars on the street that aren't law enforcement, ambulances or EMS of some kind, fire trucks. They're everywhere. I mean, there's people walking on the sidewalks because some of us literally have nowhere to go. There's a million spectators that come in for this event, and they're staying most likely in hotels all over. We're staying in the suburbs. We can't get out of Boston. We were evacuated from the place we were originally in, and we were able to get into like this very small Asian restaurant, a little farther away from where the explosions happened, but we don't have anywhere to go. We don't know what to do. And there's police officers in every corner. They're not trying to be, rude or aggressive, but they're saying, leave the city, and we're not sure how to do that at this point. So absolutely, there's just a very surreal feeling when you're on the street, and I feel very fortunate to be safe, but you don't feel completely safe, especially not with reports coming in that there could be other explosive devices out there. It's very terrifying.
Well, and you brought up a point a little bit ago. This is catching people at the end of this long race. You've run for how many hours, and you've got to be at kind of a delicate condition physically, and then to have this happen, and then you have nowhere to go, and you just mentioned this first time you've had something to eat. So there are probably a lot of people who are kind of at the end of their rope right now.
I feel guilty even saying, we're sitting down and eating, but yeah, when you run a marathon, you want to go home. You want to lay down. You're physically exhausted, and there's a lot of people that get physically ill. They have medics all over just to help people who finish their marathon. I think that the saddest, most difficult part is just that moment was so important to so many people, and in an instant, it's been taken away. Like, I don't even care anymore that I finished the marathon. This is what the day has become. This is what the next weeks of, what's next year going to be like for the Boston Marathon. It will never be the same, and It's just a very sad, very scary feeling.
Well, at least you're safe, you and Mark, and thanks for talking to us again, Joanna, and we'll hope you get back to your place safely.
Me too. Thanks, Joe.
At least 3 people are dead, including an 8-year-old child, and more than 130 other people were injured in Boston tonight. Police say 2 bombs exploded near the finish line of the Boston Marathon. The blast happened about 15 seconds apart. There's one right there on the right side of your screen, just before 2 o'clock Central Time. Authorities described the bombs as small, portable devices. KSPR reporter Joanna ran that race earlier today, and she joins us now live from Boston via Skype. Joanna, nice to see you there. Where were you when the bombs went off? Let's start with that.
I was about a block and a half away, Joe, and actually this is a really good time to show you this map. I don't know how well you can see it because it's Skype, but you see this circle right here? This is where the bombs exploded. This is the finish line. And then here where this X is where my husband Mark and I were standing. This over here is the family reunification area we had just met, and then we moved over here. We were sitting kind of like I don't know, just by a building, by a large mall. It's called the Prudential Center. There's a mall and restaurants, and this is actually where the fitness expo was yesterday, and he was bandaging up my feet, and we were getting ready to walk inside and go to lunch, and that's when we heard the first 2 explosions. So that kind of gives you an idea of how close I was. I would estimate that as about a block and a half away from where the explosions occurred.
So you heard what happened. Did you know what had happened at the time, or it was far enough away? Did you see anything that had happened, or were you just wondering?
I was actually looking in the opposite direction. And my eyes immediately went to all the skyscrapers because I was thinking 9/11, great big boom. So I was looking at these skyscrapers. I didn't see any smoke in the sky. My husband, he's former law enforcement and has experience with these kinds of things. He was deployed in Iraq. So he immediately said, that was an explosion. And I said, no, it couldn't possibly be an explosion. And a few other people were saying, what's happening? What's happening? And one woman said, maybe it was a cannon because it was Patriots Day in Boston. And, this was my first Boston Marathon, and I didn't know how they celebrated the end of that. And I thought, yeah, a cannon would make a whole lot of sense. And my husband said, no, I really think that was an explosion. And I said, okay, Mark, don't scare people. Don't say that too loudly. And he said, I just want to stay right here. So we kind of backed up against the building where we were standing, and I kind of crouched down, and he said, let's just stay right here till we get a little bit of more information. And that took a lot longer than we thought. You probably had information faster than we did, because when you're on the ground, it's so chaotic and people are so scared and rumors fly rampant, and it's really hard to get the story straight. But we saw police officers running, fire trucks, ambulances immediately, and that's when it clicked. Clearly something was not right.
Joanna, we only have a couple more seconds, but after running a race like that, I'm sure your emotions are all over the place. Lots of people have family there. What's going through your mind after that happens?
Oh, so much. So much when the marathon ended. I was happy, and Mark and I were celebrating. We were taking happy pictures, and then you hear these two explosions go off and everything changes. And it doesn't matter anymore that you ran a marathon. It doesn't matter anymore that you're there with all these world-class runners, the best runners in the world, and it's this point that you work up to for years just to get there. All of a sudden, the only thing that matters is everybody okay? And they're not. And so when I think back on this day, I'm not going to think about the race. I'm going to think about what happened in Boston and remember the people who lost their lives and lost limbs. And that's a horrible, tragic thing, and it changes everything. All
right, well, we're glad you finished and drive home safely. We hope to see you very soon. Thanks, Joanna, for your time. Coming up on KSPR News at 10 tonight, 6.5 months after the bombings, KSPR's Joanna Small goes back to Boston to find out how the people there are healing and to help heal herself. And the way she did it is pretty unique. She joins us live in our studio now to tell us about it. Joanna?
Well, Joe, I put on these. It's a chest strap and it holds this. It's a little GoPro camera. I wore this thing for 26.2 miles, the same 26.2 miles I ran back on April 15th. I reran the official Boston Marathon route. It took me considerably longer this time, and not just because I hadn't trained for a marathon. I stopped in every town along the way, interviewing people about how things have changed since the blasts and how they're moving forward.
I think it's made us stronger. It's a very sad way to get strength. But I think people who participate in these events are going to be more determined than ever.
Most people couldn't believe what I was doing because the route is a lot different when it's not blocked off for Marathon Monday. There's traffic and stoplights and a lot of long, lonely road without a single spectator. But crossing the finish line has proven to be both the triumph and closure I needed to move forward. You can watch me do that tonight at 10. So last month, I had the great honor of revisiting Boston and doing something very therapeutic. I reran the marathon and I used this tiny camera strapped to my chest to share my story, but more importantly, Boston's story.
Let's take a little trip.
Good morning. It is just after 7 o'clock in Boston.
A place they call your soul.
For some reason, a journey I once completed in 3 hours, 36 minutes, 12 seconds, using mind and body, has taken my heart so much longer.
Don't worry about the time.
I'm pretty nervous this morning.
4,745 hours. That's 6 months, 15 days.
You could tell right away it wasn't a normal sound.
Since I first ran the Boston Marathon, and I'm still not finished.
I did not even realize how much this affected me.
So today, I'm adding 6 or so more hours, the time it takes to run 26.2 miles again, from Hopkinton to downtown Boston, with stops in every town along the way to meet the people still healing. And maybe, by the end, my journey to healing will be complete.
Well, this is it. I'm here in Hopkinton. Not the most beautiful morning, but I'm still pretty excited. And if I had any concerns about backing out or that I might not finish, here's some added motivation. I spent $95 on that cab ride to get out here, so I will be providing my own transportation back, and the only way to do that is by foot. Last I checked, running was free. How many marathons do you think you've watched the start of?
Probably 50 or so.
Bill McMillan isn't a runner, but he's seen plenty of race as a Hopkinton native from way back.
72 years.
He saw this year's, and he'll see next year's, but it won't be the same.
It has changed, from a total fun event to some other kind of an event, really.
His way of healing is living like nothing has changed, but it has. So I wish him well and take off.
I'm well on my way, and I have to admit, it's certainly a lonelier journey this time, considering you don't have the crowd and you don't have the company. But I don't think that's entirely a bad thing. Sometimes it takes a little solitude to figure out what it is you need to heal. And I've got my music, and I've got you guys, and I've got the traffic. I am entering Ashland. Woohoo! That business over there says Marathon Deli Catering, so I'm probably going to need to stop there.
How long have you guys been here?
17 years.
Like Bill, Jim Johnston says he's treating the 17th year the same as the first 16, but it's not.
This has been one of the toughest years in this area in a long time. Business is definitely slower, so I think all these towns need the marathon.
And he's right. From Framingham
I think through the years it's been just a wonderful thing for all the towns.
to Natick.
I feel like I own a piece of this street, and to share it with everybody in the marathon is really special.
This race is so much more heart than lungs or legs, although I need those as well.
I am entering Norfolk County, which is almost a halfway point, Wellesley, and that means it's time to go up because I need some energy to get through the next half of this marathon.
Of course, this helps too. Running into a group of girls who at just 15, 16 years old know their lives will never be the same.
And nothing much to do.
It'll be always remembered.
Yeah.
No one's ever going to forget it. Yeah.
Wellesley is where, on Marathon Monday, I saw my husband holding up a sign encouraging me to keep going. Today, there are no familiar faces, and the only sign I need is this one.
What do you like about living along the marathon route?
Oh, it's great because it's like a street party.
Resiliency. There will be a street party next year, too.
It's a way to show that we all care and, we don't want to be afraid.
A few miles past Paula's house, and I reach the base of one of the marathon's most notorious miles.
From mile 20 to 21, it's basically Heartbreak Hill.
Heartbreak Hill Running Company has become a safe haven for broken hearts.
Personally affected me and also the owners, but I think as a store too. We saw about people days after just coming in just to sort of be in community with other runners and just to talk about things or just to kind of be near other runners who we all know are going through the same emotion.
The dark side of the moon.
I feel them all over the next 6 miles, which seem to last forever.
We're in Boston. Welcome to Boston.
Will we get to do something?
And then suddenly, I'm on Boylston Street, running by the Lord and Taylor where a security camera caught the bombers on tape. By first the second, then the first blast site, and then the finish line.
How we gonna end up feeling?
So how long does it take to heal? I stopped timing because it's not a race, it's a journey. And all that matters is I took it.
I think it's made us stronger.
Something really cool. Some of the business owners that I got the chance to talk to on Boylston Street say there are still people every single day who got cut off when the bombs went off and didn't get to finish the marathon. Right. And they come and they cross the marathon line and there's people cheering and there's a lot of traffic on that street, but they said they stop. They know at this point what people are doing.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Right, so a lot of other people have had the same idea as you, maybe to go back.
At least cross the finish line.
I don't think they ran the whole thing, but they at least ran the leg
Joanna.
that they didn't finish.
Pretty amazing story.
Yeah, it was a really amazing experience and I met a lot of really interesting people.